Well, we have to bring you AM Business. It's always brought to you by EcoBank, the Pan-African Bank. And you may have noticed that upon all the havoc wreaked on global economies by coronavirus, one emerging a strong sector immune to the deadly pandemic is financial technology and also e-commerce. Now, millions of businesses scramble for a safer haven in the tech space, and government has also put in emergency measures to ensure their sustenance by reducing the communication service tax from 9% to 5%. And this edition of AM Business, some techpreneurs engage my colleague Charles Aite on business growth and profits in these uncertain times.
Clicks and buttons, the new normal for thousands of Ghanaian entrepreneurs making it big on the internet. Call it a new age of business. Technology and mobile telephony have birthed a formidable niche economy for e-commerce and financial technology, raking in billions of cedis in revenue. The coronavirus pandemic may have disrupted world economies and streams of income, but not for the fintech and e-commerce space. I've come to meet Dr. Jihadi Osebonsu, Chief Executive and co-founder of TechLoft. For him, the impact of the pandemic has been bittersweet. Before COVID-19, Dr. Jihadi's office was filled with app developers imprinting their digital footprints on payment solutions in Ghana. Things are no longer the same.
Pre-COVID, as you can see, there's nobody in the office, right? But pre-COVID, the office was quite busy, a lot of developers. And because we're a startup, you get a lot of developers coming in and leaving, right? Going on to different companies, but you get a lot of developers coming in and leaving. We had a lot of an active market activation team, right? We had teams that were constantly going out, looking for agents, looking for churches. Now we cannot really do that. We have to rely a lot on referrals from people who are already using our systems. And then we also have to look at new business lines, especially because now everybody seems to be moving towards the future of work, right? And then the future of education. You need to look at cloud-based, more cloud-based technologies. What's emerging, what's coming? That's basically our focus now. Before COVID, we were also planning a lot of fundraising activities because we need to meet Bank of Ghana's new minimum capital requirements. And so most of those plans would have manifested this year, but COVID has affected travel. And I think for a lot of fintechs, we would have issues fundraising outside Ghana because of the travel ban. Because you can't take part in the Singapore Fintech Festival, you cannot take part in the Seamless event, you can't take part in Afro-Asia Fintech Festival.
Other digital services.
The Finance Minister, Ken Ofori-Atta, through the mid-year budget estimates, paid careful attention to this niche market. As more businesses migrate online, an emergency cushioning for the sustenance of online transactions is very key.
We will reduce the CST tax from 9% to 5% to reduce the cost of communication service to the consumer. As more and more people work remotely and utilize online services, we will count on the telcos to match this reduction in the CST by reducing their tariffs.
The communication service tax, CST, reduced from 9% to 5% means a whole lot for techpreneurs like Dr. Jihadi Osebonsu.
I don't know what data points they looked at, right? But if you look at how CST affects the digital space in Africa or in Ghana, right? It's CST the reduction is a positive move. And I say this because if you look at Africa, we spend basically about 1% of 1 gigabyte of data is equal to about 7.7% of an average African income, right? And so if the taxes come down, hopefully the telcos respond in like manner and then reduce the cost of data. Now this, you've seen COVID move a lot of people digital, right? A lot of people now want to be on different platforms, right? So this move, reducing CST should also, hopefully, impact in the number of people who actually get to use digital platforms.
Henry Kobler is the Chief Executive of iSolve Africa. He's recorded much success in his career as a developer. The e-commerce ecospace has given him room to provide useful technology for secured online payment in Ghana's growing middle-class market.
The tech industry is thriving. It's becoming better off in terms of how we bring in solutions into the market. I think that from our end, we've been successful at getting across some countries and even providing these solutions to people. Looking at the numbers, it's always getting on the rise, and we're excited about it. But I think that COVID coming in sort of just gives us a bit of distraction. And I think that for us, it's also a good thing for us to look at a brighter side of what we're doing, because it opens a lot of avenues for us to explore. I think that we even had to go on remote way before the lockdown, and I think that it's been one of the amazing times which we've had working from home, exploring those avenues where we use most of the softwares which we deployed out there. Now, the most exciting part of it is when you find these solutions being an integral part of things which, whether covered or not, people get to be using. And so it makes it more exciting to find your product out there and being the solutions. I mean, if you look at Arenepa had almost sold close to almost around 3,000 face mask, nose mask out there, and it's through these platforms from over almost around 7 different manufacturers. And I mean, these guys are making some good money just using the platform as a channel to sell. And so I think that we on the tech side, it's more exciting for us because we find our product out there. But I think that it gives us a cause to reorient the way we think, whether there's a disease or not, to look at the digital age and how it's going to improve the livelihood of the ordinary Ghanaian.
Even though government has reduced the CST tax from 9 to 5%, he tells me reasons for more collaborations with regulators to ensure the sanity of fintechs.
If we're looking at our revenue models and then the expenditure models, we realize that, I mean, you could be making something out of what you're doing, but to be very honest, for us, I could tell you it takes almost around 37% of our expenditure in-house, because almost everything we're doing is data. I mean, we're always on Zoom calls, just using data for development, testing features on mobile applications, getting users on the applications. And the very funny thing is that if we look at even the data that's spent in terms of the traffic that hits these applications which we run in-house, you could realize that that's a lot of traffic. Quantifying all that to people's megabytes and gigabytes, you could realize that that's a lot of money going in. And I think that it doesn't just even affect just the point on data, but I mean, it just even goes as to TV, where I mean, it's so costly in terms of even advertisement on TV and all that. And I think that looking at us, where it just takes almost around 37% of our expenditure. I mean, we go remote, almost every developer is spending close to excess of 150 gigabytes. That's a lot, you get the point. And if you're counting 17, 18 developers all in that fashion, that's a lot of data going. And I think that reducing it essentially makes a better way. But I think that it could be better because looking at what we want to achieve as a country, we're looking at a digital age, one which essentially helps to push most. I mean, everybody's just jumping on Zoom and all that. I think it will just be a norm from now, but what happens to that ideas? I mean, what happens to these what do you call it? There are a lot of applications, fintech companies and all that, every one of them trying to bring our product into the market. And if we're all not using data, I mean, that means that we have to get to USSD, which is not really technological in our advancement, where I think the Vice President makes a lot of mention to. If that's a vision of a country where we want to get digital, where other countries are now looking into the 5G space, I think that we have a long way to go, but we're actually at a very crucial stage where we do a lot of leapfrogging into the digital space, where we understand what China is doing, we understand what the US is doing. And so it makes it easier for us to leapfrog into the future. And so getting these taxes come down and getting the development which internet is essentially a very huge infrastructure, getting these development across. I think that it makes better sense for our books. I might not necessarily need the government bringing down my taxes, but what I essentially can feel and use in terms of data, I think if it's a bit low for us, I think it's way to go.
Now, as government races to meet revenue targets and spread the tax net, there's been pressure to consider taxing e-commerce transactions and online activity. I put this to Dr. Jihadi Osebuntu, who argues that incentives must rather be created for techpreneurs to be tax conscious.
The second class, which is people who have an Instagram store, for example, he doesn't have a business, right? Now, that's where I think if you start looking at it from the perspective where you want to tax, you would lose them, right? Because ask yourself, it's so easy to open an Instagram store, but it's difficult to register a business, right? And so if you begin to think in the light of how easy it is to open an Instagram store, rather than go to Registrar General and open a business, it makes sense for people to keep wanting to go through Instagram stores, right? Ideally, I've not seen any entrepreneur who wouldn't want to have a registered business, right? And so I think rather than look at it from the angle where you're, it's like a vicious cycle, you want to tax them, find out why they prefer to open an Instagram store so easily, rather than, in addition to that, go to Registrar General to register a business. And I think if you look at it from that perspective, you may be able to come up with product policies that would encourage some of these self-owned Instagram stores, Facebook stores, WhatsApp business stores, and they actually go an extra step to create a logo, which means they are quite serious about what they are doing, right? They hope that it will lead to something bigger. And so if you find a way to engage them, I believe strongly that you wouldn't be shouting a lot about taxing, because you would already capture them within a certain tax net.
Thanks to financial technology, Ghanaians can now make mobile payments and money transfers, access loans and raise funds, as well as manage financial assets from mobile devices without entering a banking hall. But there are challenges. Ghana's fintech ecosystem is particularly unique and for brave, innovative and entrepreneurial minds, as Dr. Jihadi Osebuntu of TechLoft and Henry Kobler of ICE of Africa. Now is the time for an unprecedented investment in Ghana's burgeoning ecospace of financial technology and e-commerce. I'm Charles Aite for Joy Business.
Great insight into the world of fintech and e-commerce and what portends for the industry, not only within coronavirus, but post the pandemic. Well, I hope that we've had some lessons to learn.